Hi there, welcome to Stoked to be here, a podcast by Stella Tandem. This podcast is set up as part of our preparation for a world record breaking attempt to cycle around the world on tandem bicycle. So we're speaking to lots of people from the world of cycling endurance, and today I'm joined by Angela Walker, or Ange, who is also known as Velo Elle on her blog, who is from the world of Audax cycling and all sorts of bits and bobs, really. So, yeah. Hi, Ange, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Very good. Fantastic. So, you've been in cycling for quite a long while, as far as I can see. Has it been something you've always done? Have you always ridden a bike since little, or was there kind of a bit of a something that triggered it off, as it were?
Well, I was quite a late starter to riding a bike, actually. I don't think I learned to ride a bike until I was about 12, which for most kids, that's quite old, isn't it? So then I learned how to ride a bike, and then I didn't ride a bike very much at all until I moved to London after university, and I just found it one of the easiest ways to get around town. So I guess really I started off as a bit of a utility cyclist. I mean, I'd always kind of cycled a little bit on and off, through my teens, and a little bit when I was at uni, but not loads really. So I got into it in a bigger way when I moved to London and I needed to ride to work. And then I started training with a triathlon club. Mainly for the swimming and the running, not the cycling. The cycling bit was
just an aside.
Yeah. The cycling was the bit that I had to do between the swim and the run, and I just had to do it, but I wasn't very good at it. And I think that because I was a better runner than I was a cyclist, I kind of trained a lot to run and didn't really train enough to cycle. But I was okay, but my running career kind of came to an end in my early 30s when I discovered that I had a stress fracture in my lower spine. It's quite a common condition. It's called spondylolisthesis, and about 10% of the population have it. But it means that you can't extend your back and you can't do anything that's really impactful. So that was running out of the window. So for a long time, I was a runner. I used to do marathons, all sorts of things, and I had to knock that on the head. So yeah, it was a bit rubbish. So I kind of had to embrace cycling more then as not just the thing in between the swim and the run, or for cycling to work. I actually had to think, right, well, if I'm going to do any exercise that's good for my back, because when I'm cycling, because you're leaning forward when you cycle, it really takes the pressure off the lower back that doesn't want to extend. So I am most comfortable now when I'm on a bike. It's like all I want to do is lean forward because that just makes my back feel so comfortable. So I guess I kind of had to embrace cycling, because I thought, right, this is going to be my thing now. This is going to be my sport. And I always kind of, I'm not one to do things by halves. So if I'm going to ride, I'm going to ride.
I think I've had that said about me as well. So yeah, I know what you mean. So yeah, once you've got into something, it's hard to know where to draw the line.
Yeah, so I guess it just started out as club rides, and then I found Audax quite late, actually. I guess because I didn't really start cycling really seriously until my kind of mid to late 30s. By that point, I'd kind of, I dabbled. I had to go to time trials, things like that, but I just found that I didn't have the speed, really. But I still wanted to be able to kind of immerse myself in it, and so that's how I kind of got the distance bug, I guess. And at the time, then when I moved to Sheffield, and I started cycling a lot with Sheffield CTC, a lot of the guys there were really into Audax, and I started doing that, and it just kind of escalated from there, really.
Yeah, fabulous.
So that's
yeah. And did you find it kind of easy to get into the kind of Audax scene, the long distance scene? Was it, did did you find it kind of easy to join rides and things like that? Were they quite welcoming? Yeah,
very welcoming, really. And I guess because Sheffield CTC organised some Audaxes as well, so I got to see both sides of it, like from the organisational helping out point of view, as well as I always had somebody to go to a ride with, because somebody would generally, going along, so I'd go along too. But you quickly realise it doesn't actually matter whether you go with anybody else or not, because people will just talk to you, won't they? So it's you can just turn up on your own and make some friends that way. So
and get involved, can't you? Yeah.
No,
it's a similar experience that I've had, and because we're Derbyshire based, so we're just a bit below you, but locally to us they've all been very welcoming, and it's a nice thing to get involved in, isn't it? And then what happened next? Because you mentioned in your blog, and it's like you're kind of riding this kind of standard distance in Audax is 200 kilometers. What happened to kind of trigger the whole next new level?
So that was but back in, I think it must have been about maybe 2014 or 2015, I went to do one of the 200s down at Alfreton. I think it might have been like Roses to Rags, or one of the early ones that's like in February. And just got chatting to some people, and they said, "Oh, you're doing it as a PBP qualifier," and I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And so they were like, "Well, Paris-Brest-Paris," and I was like, "No, I don't know anything about it. Tell me about it." And they're like, "Oh, right, well," and they explained what it was and what you had to do. And I was just like, "Oh, wow, you've got to do 200, 300, 400, and 600." I was like, "Oh, no, 200 is enough for me." And so I did my 200. And then I went home and I thought about it a bit, and I thought, "Oh, well, maybe I could have a go at doing this." So I looked into it, found out a bit more about it, discovered, how you qualified. And I thought, well, why not give it a go? Let's see what happens. So I just spent ages trying to find loads of qualifiers that I could do. And I think I did Everybody Rides to Skeggy as my standard 300.
Oh, that's a great one. Yeah. I've done that a few times.
And then for my 400, I entered one of Andy Corliss's.
Oh, no.
Unbeknown to me, I just thought, oh, that looks like a nice ride across the Dales. And so it was a 400. It was a Heartbeat 400 that I did. And it's in May, isn't it? And it ended up being a really cold May. And it got the temperature that night, the gritters were out, and I was absolutely freezing. And I was tired anyway, because, it's hilly, and I'd done about 250k. I was sort of on my way back, and I got into Richmond at about 11 o'clock, and I was freezing. I had every bit of clothing on, and I wasn't feeling brilliant. And I just thought, oh God, I don't know if I can do this. And I thought, no, I'll plug on, I'll carry on. And I got to Laban, and I felt absolutely shocking. It's about 300k in, I guess, by the time you get to Laban. And I thought, well, it's now or never, because now it's midnight. There's going to be nothing open. And I knew that I had to go back over tops. And I just thought, I really don't know if I can do it. I'm absolutely exhausted, and I'm freezing cold. When you're so cold that you don't want to go fast downhill because the wind chill just makes you feel cold.
Every time you go uphill, you're dreading the descent, aren't you? Because you just know it's going to strip away everything. It's awful,
absolutely. Isn't it? I felt rubbish. And so I ended up running into a pub in Laban just after closing time. All the punters were coming out, and I burst through the door, and I said to the landlady, "Have you got any rooms? I'm desperate." And she's like, "Oh, yeah, we've got one. Do you want it?" I said, "Yeah, I'll have it. I'll take it now." And I just bailed there and then, and I sent Andy a message saying, "I'm really sorry, I'm absolutely worn out." And after that, I just thought, well, that's it. I've not done a 400. I don't think I'm going to be able to do this now, And I kind of, sulked a bit about it, and then thought, well, hang on, let's just see if I can find another 400 that I can do instead. And I ended up doing, what did I do? I think I did one out of Mythelmroyd, one of the 400s out of the flat to Spurn, not quite Spurn.
I was about to say, because some of those aren't flat either.
That were a lot flatter.
Right, you didn't do the 240, did you? Yeah, and so yeah.
And I managed that one, and yeah, that was so I was back on track then, and I did my 600. I did Windsor, Chester, Windsor as my 600, and then off to Paris. So yeah, that was my first super randonneur and my first taste of Paris-Brest-Paris. You know, all in a year. I didn't do any pre-qualifying rides or anything like that. So
wow.
When I got the bug then, and I thought, yeah, this is it. What can I do next? Kind of thing.
Yes, and Andy call it. Yeah, we've experienced it. They are notoriously hilly and grueling and scenic, shall we say? But yeah, it was a brave choice for a 400.
Well, it was a naive choice, wasn't it? I really didn't have a clue.
No, that's amazing, though. And then obviously, yeah, it's a very quick route to PBP. How did you find it? Because you did amazingly well to get in the time with a few hours to spare. Even was it the toughest ride of your life, or
yes,
did
absolutely.
Yeah.
when I did that, it was the toughest thing I'd ever done. Yeah, and I rode it with my friend Andy because we did a lot of the qualifiers together, and yeah, again, I think we didn't really know what we were in for. So, and you know, for probably the first day, we were just taking it quite easy and you know, thinking, oh, this is great. It's great to just, you know, cycle along, and because it's such a great atmosphere. It's like a real kind of party atmosphere, I guess, isn't it? And all the local people get so behind it, and you know, you've got little kids like clapping and high-fiving you. Midnight,
yeah, you literally get cheered on the road, don't you?
Yeah,
and people offering you coffee, cake, everything.
Yeah, it's a brilliant atmosphere. But then, you know, you get to Brest and then you think, oh God, I've not got very long to get back. I better crack on now and stop messing around and stopping for coffee in everybody's garden, you know, and just go for it. So yeah, it was the return leg was pretty hard work because we knew that we were just gonna have to knuckle down to get on with it. And I guess really the one of the most interesting things about Audax for me was discovering just how far you can push yourself on not very much sleep, because you just assume, don't you, oh God, I need 8 hours a night, but actually it's amazing how much fresher you can feel just after half an hour on the side of a road somewhere.
Yeah, if you can do that mind trick where you convince yourself you've had enough sleep and you wake up and you pretend it's, you know, you've slept all night and it's the next day, it does make you can flip the switch sometimes, can't you? So it certainly makes a big difference. And then from Paris-Brest-Paris PBP, you'd obviously definitely got the bug by then, because was it a few years later you entered the Transcon?
It was the year after.
Yeah. Oh wow, goodness. Yeah, and that's something that I've kind of, you know, you see the videos and you hear about Emily Chappell, Fiona Colbing, all these girls going out and doing it, and it sounds like just an absolutely epic ride. So it's a massive feat in itself. And I believe you rode with your friend Julie as a pair, didn't you? Because the entries to Transcon, you either enter solo or you can enter as a pair. And you've been the first female pair to complete it, I believe.
Yeah. It's we were talking, because I see Julie regularly, and we went for a ride last week together, and sometimes we still say, blimey, we did that, didn't we? We did actually. We rode to Greece and we actually got there, because just now it feels like such a long time ago, and with everything that's happening currently and not being able to go anywhere, you just think, oh wow, to just be able to ride to Greece right now would be pretty amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it's, you know, it's a completely epic ride, isn't it? And I think, you know, one of the kind of exceptional things was that you were riding as a pair, so you have to stick together essentially, don't you? And it's got interesting parallels to tandem riding. I mean, I suppose one of you could just ride off on your own bike, but you're still kind of in it together, aren't you? And I think that's kind of it's almost a different skill set you need to be able to adapt to another person. And is that something you found along the way? Do you think it made it harder? Was it more challenging with the pros and cons?
It has a different set of challenges to doing it solo. You know, both things are difficult, but it's really interesting because before we did it, a lot of people warned us against doing it because, you know, even our respective
Really?
partners both said, well, you know, you're friends now, but you might absolutely hate each other by the time you finish. And lots of people told us stories about, oh, well, I did this really big walk with one of my friends and now we just don't speak to each other ever again, you know. So a lot of people kind of said, are you sure that you really want to do it as a pair? But, you know, we knew that we were really evenly matched cycling wise, so we were a really good fit. We were both going into it with our eyes open, and we both felt exactly the same about it, which was we just wanted to finish. We didn't mind what time we did. You know, we just wanted to get to Greece, and if we were out of time, that didn't matter either. It was all about the journey for us and doing it together. And we had all the talks about what we would do if one of us couldn't complete. Would we want the other one to continue? And we were both happy that if the other person wanted to, you know, we had a strategy. So we discussed what would happen if one of us fell ill for like a day or something like that. Then we would stay we would stay together. And if then something happened that would then mean that one of us couldn't continue, then we'd have that chat then. But both of us had already decided that we both felt it would be okay for the other one to continue as a solo, providing that the one that couldn't continue was safe and happy about that. Yeah. So you've got to kind of talk about all these things in advance, so that there are kind of no surprises when you're out on the road. I think the most interesting thing about being a pair is you've got to commit to it 100%, because you are a unit and you've got to think like a unit and you've got to do everything together. You can't always be riding at the same pace all of the time because one of you gets tired when the other one might feel strong. So you've just got to take that into account and think, oh, okay, today I'm having a good day and Julie's having a bad day, but tomorrow I might be having a bad day and Julie might be having a good day. And you've just got to kind of get over that and not get frustrated and just accept that you are only ever going to be as fast as the slowest rider, and be comfortable with that, because otherwise you're just going to stress yourself out and there's no point. You've just got to really think completely like a unit, really.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I completely agree. I think it is a whole new level of challenge. It's certainly a skill to have, and I think it shows your kind of skills and that you've already got from endurance rides. Did you do many kind of long rides with her beforehand? Did you both kind of know how you like to ride on kind of longer rides? Because you know, it's something with me and Stevie, obviously we're quite aware, even when we ride solos, of our pacing and how long we like to stop for, and kind of even to the point where we know when each one of us is going to dip during the kind of night time as well, and when we'll need keeping awake.
Yeah. I mean, we did like a full SR series together, and we went away on a couple of weekends where we knew probably from doing the training that we, even though we would like to have cycled about 250 kilometers a day, we knew that it was probably going to be a little bit more like 220. So once we'd kind of got our heads around that, and we figured out that we could probably do it in about 15 days, we knew how we had to, you know, how fast we had to cycle. We got our eating strategy right. We got our, you know, the luggage. You know, we made sure that we knew exactly what we were going to take. So we had lots of kind of dry runs over long weekends and Audaxes and things like that. So we were kind of fully practiced by the time we were actually on the start line. But you never really know what's going to happen once you're out there. So you've got to kind of be prepared to just wing it when things go completely not to plan as well, because that's just bound to happen. That's part of how it is. You know, your perfect route that you thought you'd absolutely nailed down, yeah, you just end up in a dead end in the middle of a forest and thinking, oh, right, what are we going to do now? There's plenty of that that goes on. But the other thing that we did was we planned the route together. So I used to get Tuesday mornings off work. So every Tuesday morning for probably almost the whole of the year, once we'd realised that we'd got a place, that was like route planning time. and we met up and we did it completely together, so that it just took the pressure off them, because we knew that we were both responsible for the route. There weren't any days where I'd just done it or Julie had just done it, because we didn't want to get those situations where, when you're tired and resentment builds up, we say, well, I didn't design this route, you did. And, you know, we didn't want any of that bickering or anything. So we did it all 100% together. And then it were both our faults. If we went wrong, it were both our faults. So, you know.
Yeah, and it's a really, really good point, isn't it? And
yeah.
When we rode Land's End to John O'Groats last year, it was mostly my route planning, but I had to go, you know, Steve did lots of other bits and bobs, but I had to go to him, look, you know, if you don't like it, you're welcome to have a crack. So if I'm going to do it, that's it. You need to accept what's planned. And we made a few changes along the way, but it's a really kind of valid point, isn't it? That getting both people involved is it kind of mitigates a lot of that kind of problems you can get along the way. So it's really interesting, and it is a completely different dynamic, I think, to cycling with somebody else. So it's some really interesting insights there. And then kind of following on from all of this, you've now been kind of involved in kind of organising your own events and rides, and probably the biggest one would be All Points North. Can you tell us kind of basically what that is and how it works, just as a kind of an overview?
Yeah, so it's a ride around the north of England, starts and finishes in Sheffield, and there are 10 checkpoints dotted all around the north that riders have to get to. There is no time limit, but we do have a finishers party 3 days, 72 hours after the riders have started. So I guess people try to get back for the finishers party, but you absolutely don't have to. So you can take it in your own time if you want to. We did the first one in 2019, and we had planned to do another one last year, but of course that unfortunately didn't happen. And we are hoping that this year's will be able to go ahead, but we're still being really tentative about it. So a lot of the people who had an entry to last year's deferred their place to this year. It was supposed to take part in May, because we like to run it on the last bank holiday in May. And the reason for that is that a lot of people want to do a shorter ride before they go off and do something big in the summer, like Transatlantic Way or TCR or something like that. And it gives people a smaller, an opportunity to do a smaller ride, just to see what it's like, make sure they've got their kit sorted out and all those kind of things before they go on to do something bigger. So May seemed like a really good time in the events calendar to do it. But of course, we're a little bit nervous about May. Yeah. So we've moved it to September this year. So hopefully, if it runs, because we're still being very, very cautious about it, it'll start on the 4th of September. And we are really hoping that we can do it. But it's such a big undertaking to do something like that, because you've got to make sure that you've got all your hall sorted out, and we order in things like gazebos and food and all those kind of things, and it's quite a lot of money to outlay if you don't know that you're actually going to be able to run the event. So yeah, we've still not made any absolutely final decisions at the minute.
Which is definitely fair enough, but I'll certainly be keeping a watch to see how things pan out with that, because hopefully, if not this year, next year it'll certainly come around again. And from the kind of inaugural year of running it, were those the sort of people that were entering it? Were they people that were looking at doing kind of the bigger rides, or was it a bit of a mix? And who did you kind of see being successful in that kind of ride? What do you think made people kind of a strong contender for getting round and getting back in good time?
Well, really, our main aim when we set it up was that we wanted to be able to give people an opportunity to do something like that without having to go abroad to do it. And we tried to keep the cost of it under £100 as well. So a really big focus of it was to try to make it as accessible as possible to people, because I think the world of ultra distance cycling can seem a little bit out of reach for some people, because you have to go somewhere else to do it, and it costs a lot of money, and you need loads and loads of kit. So we thought, well, the kit side of things, we can't do very much about that, but what can we do to try to give people that kind of experience without having to travel far away and without having to spend a lot of money on a race entry. And we got a real mix of people applying for the first one. So we got people who had already done TCR, and we got people who had got a place in TCR, but they'd never done it before, and from a lot of the other ultra events as well. But then we got people who had never had to go at anything like that before, and they were just really keen. And we had an application process, so we set up a series of questions for people to answer, so that we could make sure that we knew that they had a full understanding of what they're letting themselves in for, because it is unsupported. Once you leave Sheffield, that's it, you're completely on your own. And some of the places that we send people to are quite remote, and you're also completely in charge of your own route. It's up to you how you get there, and you're not allowed to take any outside help. So, and you can't phone your mum up to bring you an extra jumper because you're cold halfway around. It's like you are completely on your own. And so we asked people a series of questions on the application form to make sure that they really got that and that they understood it. And yeah, we did get a really good mix of people, and we're choosing how many people can take part. So in the first year that we ran it, we have 60 places. We've got 80 now, which is 60 solos and 10 pairs. We tried to make sure that we had a good mix of people, so that when riders came together, they'd have a really interesting experience with one another. Because I think one of the key things about ultra racing and Audax is that you learn a lot from other riders. So we made sure that we had a good balance of people who'd done things like that before, along with people who just really wanted to have a go, and they kind of they had the right kind of mentality for it, I guess. And some of that kind of rider interaction before and after, sometimes, well, that's the nicest part of the event for us. And I think people really appreciated that as well. People were really keen to talk to the people who had done well, and get more tips and advice and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. And in terms of people who do well out of it, I think, it's the same kind of people that do well in all kind of long distance events. And it's, you can be kind of physically prepped to the max, but if you've kind of not got it right in your head, then the kind of the mental toughness, I think, is as important as the physical stamina, if not maybe more important in some respects, because you are going to get to a point where you feel rubbish and you just want to go home, but you've got to figure out a way to get through that, and I think, and just keep going and just tell yourself to carry on. And so I guess that they are kind of the people who are always going to do well in events like that.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part of the challenge, really. It's how you get your head around those situations, isn't it? And yeah, you can be as fit as you like sometimes, but yeah, if it's, you're really up against the wall and you're absolutely knackered, it's trying to see your way through that. And I always find it's amazing how it comes around again. Sometimes you can, be absolutely shattered and think you're at wit's end, and if you manage to keep on going for a few hours, sometimes you get it back again and think, oh, what was I worried about?
yeah, it's amazing how you can feel terrible, can't you? Absolutely terrible. You just think, I just need this to end now, and then you can just turn a corner and maybe you'll see a lovely view, or you'll just, something will just happen and your mood will lift and you think, wow, I feel amazing now. It's just, so nothing is ever permanent, is it? And I think remembering that is a really important lesson to learn, that if you feel rubbish now, you're probably not going to feel rubbish soon, and you might feel rubbish for ages, but you're never going to feel rubbish forever. So yeah,
definitely, it's one of Stevie's sayings too, is it's all temporary. He usually says it at the worst time and I just want to punch him in the face, but he is usually right. It's all temporary. Fantastic. So I wanted to hear a bit as well about a different gear, which is your not-for-profit kind of business, as it were, too. And there's all sorts of bits and bobs going on with that. So can you kind of explain all that in a nutshell too?
I can, yeah. So it's definitely not my business.
Wow.
So I am really fortunate to work for a charitable trust called Heeley Development Trust. And it's working for those guys that's kind of enabled me to be able to put on All Points North. So Heeley Development Trust, they do lots of things in the South Sheffield area, but one of their real areas of expertise is cycling and active travel projects. And we used to run a bike recycling workshop called Recycle Bikes, but a couple of years ago we managed to get some funding to do up our workshop and turn it into a proper shop, I guess, really. But we've got 10 trustees, so we are totally community owned, and we employ people from the local area, and we're all really into cycling, and it's really nice to be able to run a bike shop that's able to do lots of other things as well. So we do, we are really community focused. We run some contracts for the council to get more people cycling. So we're into cycling at all levels, really. It's, from just getting people started and getting people on a bike. We still do all the bike recycling. So if people can't afford a new bike, then we make sure that they've got a fully serviced, good quality working second-hand bike. We work in partnership with a local organisation in Sheffield called Pedal Ready, which offers free cycle training to people. So yeah, we just want to get loads of people on bikes, really, whether that's just riding to the shop to pick up a pint of milk or riding across Europe. It doesn't matter. It's just all people on bikes, and that's what's kind of important to us, and it's really important to the trust as well. So yeah, it's a good place to work.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds absolutely amazing because, we're talking about all these big, exciting events, but everybody starts somewhere. And I think, it's just facilitating that. Sometimes it's never really too old to start. And we've both, got into the long distance cycling scene very much in our adulthood. And it's, and it's kind of grown from there. So sometimes it's just giving people that foot in the door or that helping hand, or as you say, just helping them fix up a bike, get on a bike, or just a bit of tuition. So I think it's a really amazing thing to be involved in, and it's obviously got a lot of benefits to it as well. And I did notice from your blog you say I'm Ange and I spend a lot of time riding my bike, and I think it's similar to it's. I suspect you're similar to me that if you're confident and you've got the right kit or the right bags and bits and bobs like that, going to the shops, going and running errands, just transporting yourself about becomes instinctive on a bike, doesn't it? And it becomes your main mode of transport.
Yeah, well, for me it is. My car failed its MOT 10 years ago and I got rid of it, and I've never bought a new one. So yeah, it's just me and my bike, really.
Yeah, and it definitely makes a difference. And I was going to say, how do you fit your full-time job around all this cycling? But I suspect that's it, isn't it? when your bike's your main mode of transport, that's how you do it. And
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, if I need to, do a little bit of training, I just get up an hour earlier and add an extra hour onto my commute, which I've only got a short commute. It's only about 3 kilometres, but I've got all the Peak District to have a go at, so I can just get up early and do that before I come to work on a morning.
And as things open up more and more, hopefully we'll be able to go further and further as well, won't we? So yeah.
Oh yeah, that for sure.
Definitely. So just to finish off as well, I have got some tandem trivia questions for you. None of them are too bad. So have you ever ridden a tandem?
Oh, once, but literally round the block. I'm too much of a control freak to ride a tandem. We sometimes get them in to renovate at work, and one of my colleagues, Carlos, he went on the front and I went on the back, and he's just like, I am never taking you on a tandem again.
It is a thoroughly disconcerting experience sitting on the back, isn't it? And yeah, I must admit, having been a solo rider, the first time I got on the back with Steve, and it was just, yeah, terrifying.
Well, front or back, it both bothers me, because on the back, I've got no control, and then on the front, it's like, oh my God, now I'm responsible for somebody else as well. It blows my mind.
Oh dear. So just to push it out there, and if you were to ever consider riding a tandem, who would you have on a tandem as your like dream partner? If it could be anybody, alive or dead, if you could go on a tandem with somebody, who would you choose?
Gosh, I don't know. God, that's a difficult one. Wow. Well, it'd have to be somebody that I really trusted, obviously, if I did go on the back, which I probably would, I guess. Well, in all honesty, it would be my partner, Ken, because I totally trust him. I'm still never going to get on a tandem with him.
We won't hold you to this.
Yeah, because he's a good cyclist and he's a safe pair of hands, and he never loses his cool. And he's been on a tandem with lots of other people, but just not with me.
Yes, it is. It's a whole new level, isn't it? Yeah. Fantastic. And when we often say we're kind of joined by the frame on the tandem, but when you are on these long distance rides, is there anything you are kind of joined by the frame to? Is there anything you can't live without, be it, you know, a certain snack, a tool, you know, something you take along with you on all your kind of bigger rides? Is there kind of almost a guilty pleasure or something like that?
Gosh, that's a tough one. Something I always take. Well, I always take plenty of food. That's a given. Yeah, I don't know. I've always got food. I've always got spare emergency something. And if I don't have an emergency something, then I have to quickly go and replenish. So I guess food would be the thing, you know, because you can't, if you don't fuel, you can't do anything, can you? So
no, definitely.
Yeah, an emergency baguette tucked away somewhere.
Yeah, and it is what's your go-to snack, as it were? I assume, being long distance, you're not into the gels and the proper food, definitely.
Yeah. When I were training, well, I still do on long rides. I have bagels with peanut butter and jam.
Oh, that's a good one.
Little bits, little quarters, and I put them in my top tube bag. Then I can just take a quarter out at a time. And I always toast them, but they still, it's amazing how long you can have a bagel in your bag.
Yes, I know.
Eat it. Even after it's been toasted, it's, you know, good for 24 hours at least.
Oh, at least, definitely, yeah.
But yeah, generally, if I'm doing something, you know, really long and I'm just having to pick food up as I go, then I just tend to stick to like really boring, what we call beige food, you know, because just want nothing that's going to make you feel ill, nothing that's going to give you a massive spike. So just, yeah, baguettes, cheese sandwich, that kind of thing, you know. It's if it's beige, then it's generally going to be all right.
Fodder. Yeah, I must admit, we go down, it's peanut butter and honey for us, but
right,
yeah, but it tends to be sandwiches because Steve doesn't like the bagels. He finds the hole in the middle too pointless.
But maybe you can cut them into quarters.
I know, so maybe that's it. Maybe if I quarter them, I'll get away with it. I might try that on our next ride and see what he says. Amazing. So one last question. Why should we ride around the world on tandem bicycle together?
Cool. Well, why shouldn't you? You know, I mean, wow, it's just going to be an amazing experience. I think you two probably know one another well enough now to know that you can do it, don't you? So, or, you know, at least tolerate one another for that amount of time. And it's just, well, why not do it?
Oh, that's amazing. And thank you so much. You've been tremendous. It's been great chatting to you, and hopefully, as things open up more, I will bump into you on a ride sometime soon.